So the month of October is here, a perfect time to talk about horror movies, especially movies about witches. And instead of talking about Hocus Pocus 2, I'm going to review the movie Haxan. So Haxan came out in 1922, and it's a Swedish and slash Denmark film. So basically, to translate, the movie's called The Witch. And it's a documentary series on witchcraft throughout the ages. Like, for example, they go back to the 1400s when the Black Death was becoming a really big thing. A lot of witchcraft activity was happening then, maybe even during the Persian Empire and how they dealt with witches. So I found that to be a little bit fascinating, especially when it comes to history and the touchy subject when it comes to witchcraft. And they don't praise witchcraft at all in this movie. No, they basically show a documentary series on how witchcraft, the devil, and the evil that it rots upon the world. And for me, I would have to say visually and light-wise, this movie definitely does capture you for a lot of moments in this movie. Like, for example, whenever things need to get dark, you can just see silhouettes all around, like the devil seducing some women. You can definitely tell that these women are naked, but it's too dark, so you can't really see anything, so there's that. And also, the stop-motion moment in this movie. There was a scene in this movie where this guy wakes up, there's money all over the place, and he claims that he is rich, so he puts them all in this one big pile. But then next thing you know, you start seeing them move, and they start spiraling out of control. They start disappearing. Something about stop motion animation works a whole lot better than CGI in a horror movie. You can even argue with me on that. For me, it's got to be the unworldly movement that stop motion has always been famous for. That's why I believe stop motion works out a whole lot better in a horror movie than CGI does. And another thing that caught my eye in this movie was the costumes. The costume design for the devil himself, he goes through several transformations throughout the years, especially to how people view the devil in those days. I gotta say, they are very eye-catching, and there are several moments where I was thinking to myself, yeah, that would be really creepy to look at, especially that one scene where that guy is in front of a box and the devil just jumps out of the box right in front of him. Yeah, I would panic. I would run away after seeing something like that. However, this movie does have a couple of downfalls as well, because not all of these episodes are really about stories, for say, more like educational pieces on pictures of witchcraft. Like, for example, the very first episode is like 20 minutes long, and it has no story in it. It's just showing you a bunch of famous pictures of witchcraft throughout the ages, and just some guy pointing it out saying, hey, this witch right here did this. Hey, this witch right here was burned to the stake. And it just kept on going. And I was sitting here thinking to myself, if I wanted to get bored during a slideshow, I would go back in time and restart my junior high years in high school. So there's a couple of moments where it does drag me out of the film, but when it gets to the second episode and they're going through all these stories and all such, a lot of these stories kind of move a little bit too quickly because I don't have enough time to really connect on what is going on. Like, for example, they have dug up a dead body and I have no idea what they were doing with it. And then this one woman comes in asking for a love potion because her husband is basically eating all day and ignoring her. And when they go through the thing where they go back in time, or her imagination to show what it would be like if her husband got that potion, I'm just sitting here thinking to myself, I'm looking at her husband and I'm thinking to myself, lady, you better get that love potion working stat, because by the way he eats his food and how big he is, I think he's about to have a date with diabetes pretty soon. So that's the only thing I got really out of the first story in this movie, and that's kind of a shame because I wanted to see how this love potion really works for her husband and what evil consequences would have afterwards. The movie completely ignored that. So there are some stories in this movie that just felt really just unfinished. So that's kind of a bummer for me. Because when that is over, they move on to the devil stuff, and he doesn't even have a story in this movie. He's just out there doing shenanigans, or just putting the seven deadly sins on everybody in either these villages or cities or any of these people, all that type of stuff. So there's not really a story going on when it comes to the devil. It's just more or less the movie explaining to you what the devil is like, stuff that you already know. So the movie kind of fails on that part. So I gotta say, Haxan is definitely an eye-catcher. If you like visual effects, stop motion, or just being awe-inspired by old film and how they used to create things, this is definitely a movie worth checking out. However, if you don't like slideshows and you think a lot of these so-called episodes in this movie is a complete waste of time, you're probably not going to come back to this movie, but I will say Haxan is worth watching at least once. So Haxan, have you seen it? What did you think of it? Whatever you thought, comment down below. Also, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and share my videos as much as possible so I can finally get monetized enough to challenge other reviewers to do the exact same challenge, and I'll see you in the next video.